Me, Brandon Colonel. I just wanted to make a quick video, real quick, about various customer service departments that I've actually dealt with various knife companies, and what I've come to expect when I actually contact customer support. I've really only had to deal with 3 different knife brands for customer service, but with those 3, I've come to expect a fairly decent quality. Now, the only 3 that I've ever dealt with is Kai USA, which handles Kershaw, Zero Tolerance, and Shun, and CRKT and Spyderco. Now, you may probably already understand where this is going if you've had dealings with all 3 of them before. So, I'll start off with the one that I felt was the best. Now, I've only dealt with this one twice, and that's CRKT. Now, from those of you who have seen my collection through the videos that I've done, you know that I don't have very many CRKT blades, but the ones that I do have, I'm fairly impressed with, and if ever I needed to get any of them serviced, I know that CRKT would take care of it without a problem. Now, the first time that I actually had to do anything with the CRKT's customer service was with the Ma Eraser. Now, that knife has been recently traded because it just wasn't for me. So yeah, I ended up trading it for another knife, but which I think that I showed you guys in another recent video, but just in case I didn't, I had traded it for a Lightning OTF. But yeah, I ended up having to call in customer service for that because I needed more washers, so that way I could take some blade play out of the knife. And I also needed a new pivot bolt, the male and female end of it. I got that within just maybe less than a week of actually calling them. Didn't have to fill out any kind of forms. I didn't have to send the knife in and let them deal with it. Just simply called in and said, "Hey, can you send me these parts?" They said, "Okay, what's your address?" And they sent it out to me. And then just today, actually, then I actually called it CRKT again because for a new knife that I also just recently bought. It's the CRKT Onion Ripple, which it is the frame lock version. Just recently I decided to take this thing apart and re-lube it, give it a little bit of oil, because it just felt a little gritty opening and closing it, so I wanted to try and fix that. But in the process, I ended up losing some of the bearings, because anybody who's ever dealt with IKBS, you know that the bearing track in this is the most annoying thing to ever hit knives. And so taking it apart is an absolute pain in the butt. You lose more bearings than you end up putting back in the dumb thing. But when you actually have all the bearings, and when they're all in place, it's incredibly smooth. Now, it's still not the smoothest that I've ever dealt with, but it is fairly smooth, especially for what it is. But so, I mean, this is about the same level of smoothness as I have in my Kershaw Nura. It's not the best quality, but it is fairly high quality. But so, I ended up calling them, asking for some more bearings. And without any hesitation, they were like, "Okay, sure. What's your address?" And at first, I was kind of expecting them to say, "It's a Chinese-built knife. We don't keep those parts on hand," which is actually something that Kershaw's done before. Now, I haven't personally experienced it, but I know they do it. Like, say, there are Chinese-made knives, they can't just send out a torsion bar. Because the torsion bars for those are a little bit more specialty designed, and you can't just simply swap out one for another. Like, the zero tolerance torsion bars, they keep those all on hand because they're all American made. And most of the American made Kershaws, they're mainly manual, so they don't really need any torsion bars. But yeah, you have to send in the knife in order to get a Kershaw knife fixed, for the most part because they're all Chinese made and they don't keep any of the parts on hand. Which is why Kershaw is second on my list. The Chinese-made knives, they don't really keep anything on hand, so they can't really fix it without pretty much disassembling another knife and taking it apart and putting it back together right then and there. They have to have the knife with them, pretty much. Which, I don't know how they would actually fix it while it's there, but yet they can't send you a part, so don't really see the logic behind that. But that's the way they do things, and if you call them, then they'll take care of pretty much any problem that you have. I also had to call Kai USA today, because I was sending in 2 of my ZTs. My 0801, for whatever reason, in the short 3 months that I've actually owned it, somehow I've managed to flip it enough times the detent has completely worn off, and I can now flick it out with inertia openings, which is, that's just not good for me, considering that that's the knife that I keep in my back pocket, tipped down. And, well, actually no, sorry, tip up. And so, back pocket, seam of my pants right here, it's a flipper. If I can open it with inertia, that means if it hits the seam of my pocket the wrong way, and that, which this has an insanely strong detent, so it's not that easy to do it this way. There we go. Then the knife is going to open. Stick my hand down in there, incredibly sharp blade. That's going to get dangerous, so I can't have that. And there's no way on earth that I'm switching it to a tip-up carry. Partly because it doesn't have the holes for it, but also, even if it did, it's the perfect size. I can just reach in, grab it, my hand's on the flipper. It's right where I want it to be. So, I'm sending it in, getting the detent replaced by just switching out the lock bar, and it should be good. But here's where they scored some really big points with me. I also had to send in my 561. I've had that knife for probably just a little bit over a year. I know that I uploaded the unboxing video the same day that I got it, so I think it was actually the 15th of this month last year, if I remember correctly, because now you don't actually have to have your receipt anymore when you send in your Kershaw or ZT. You just simply have to have the date of purchase. So, luckily for me, I had that one on file just because I remember that I had the unboxing video the same day that I got it. So, yeah, so I just kind of use that as my date of purchase, so to speak. But even though it wasn't really the date of purchase, I probably got it maybe a week or two beforehand, but yeah, what's a week or two off? But so, I sent that in, but I was asking about pretty much the same thing. The detent was really weak, which it wasn't the strongest detent to begin with, but at least it was strong enough that you couldn't just simply shake the blade out. And so I sent it in, and to get the detent replaced, and they were saying that if they can't fix it back to factory specs, then they'll actually just simply replace it with the newer model that actually has a lock bar insert. So that way they can just simply replace the lock bar if the problem ever happens again. They scored some pretty big points there. They're willing to replace their blade if they can't fix it, even though it's old. Well, it's not really old, it's only about a year old, but it's fairly worn down. I mean, the lock face is probably worn in to a good 100%. So, it's not exactly a new knife anymore, and it's completely worn down. The edge still holds up phenomenally, but all in all, the knife still holds together, but it is worn in. It's an older knife. But yet, they were still willing to replace it completely with the newer model that's probably going to end up being a little bit more expensive due to the lock bar insert, just because they wouldn't be able to fix it. Now, if they can fix it, then there's no need for them to replace it. Which, honestly, I kind of hope they can't fix it so that way I can get a lock bar insert. But if they fix it, okay. It's fine by me. Which now brings me to Spyderco. I called them about a week after I got my Tenacious because I couldn't seem to take it apart anymore. And it's like they put some kind of super glue on the inside of it. And so I couldn't get the screws off, and it would actually break my T6 Torx drivers. It would actually break the bits off, and I couldn't use them anymore because the threads were holding on so freakishly tightly. And I called Spyderco, and I was saying, hey, can you fix this? But for whatever reason, they have an answering machine system, and so I couldn't get a hold of them. Called him a second time, trying to get another caller to actually answer me. And I got the same answer, the same answering machine. And both times they were saying, leave your name and number and we'll call you back. It's been over a year since I actually placed that call, and I'm still waiting on a call back. And I've heard other atrocious stories about Spyderco's customer service before. I'm not impressed with them. In fact, I completely gave up on Spyderco and their customer service to the point where I have pretty much retired the Tenacious, and I just don't even carry it anymore. It's a decent beater knife, but if I can't carry it, then what's the point? I would like to be able to take apart my knife so that way I can actually maintenance it, but I can't seem to get a hold of anybody to actually be able to get it maintenanced. So I've pretty much given up. I may try sometime in the future just so that way I can carry it again. Just for the simple sake of being able to, just so that way I can. Because it is a decent beater knife. And every once in a while it was fun to just flick open. But when I actually had to scavenge parts off of it, so that way it could be useful again, now it can't even open properly, because it doesn't even have the washers anymore. I actually scavenged that to put in the eraser. So I can't even get the washers back on that now. So now it is the epitome of a beater knife. And I still haven't heard back from Spyderco. Zero Tolerance, Kershaw, CRKT. You call them, you get back to them. They get back to you immediately because they don't have an answering machine system. Basically, the line just keeps on ringing until somebody answers you. I like that. I like the fact that CRKT and Kai USA actually takes care of their customers. I have yet to see that from Spyderco. Now, I've heard some people raving about their service, because they must have caught him on a good day. They must have caught him when they were actually looking into the calls, taking care of them immediately, and sending out the equipment that was needed. Whereas I've also heard of numerous reports of people saying, hey, I need a replacement pocket clip. And they got screws, body screws, for a knife that wasn't even theirs. And I've heard this all over the place. From various people, from Knife Obsession, other random people that I've talked to about just the warranty department from Spyderco. Nobody seems to like the warranty department, even if they love Spyderco. But no matter what, I have heard phenomenal things from the warranty department and customer service from CRKT and Kai USA. So, I'm going to cut it off there, guys. Just that whenever you're looking into customer service in the warranty department from any knife company, look for them to actually take care of what they're supposed to do, and be wary of Spyderco. That's really all that I can say about that. Just be wary of their customer service, which honestly is a bit of an oxymoron. Spyderco customer service, yeah, it doesn't exist. So, I'm going to cut it off here, guys. As always, YouTube, stay safe.